I just have to say thank you before I go any further, because I reached out to you just on a blind whim.
Yeah.
I called you and said, someone told me I needed to talk to you. And you took my call, which was really generous of you. And you changed my direction, because you gave me like an hour of your time and you said, you got to be authentic. You got to do what you got to do. You got to run with it. Like, I don't know. I'm just grateful. Like, I'm grateful that you spent that time. I was so nervous talking to you. I don't know why, but I was super nervous.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your adventure.
Okay.
You have many, right?
Yeah, right before we get into it, and we
Go
will,
ahead.
everything else. I just got to share this. I don't know if I ever told you this. I had actually thought and planned about doing this. Ever tell you this?
I think you did mention it, yes.
Yeah, I thought and everything else. And I realized at some point, the reason, and then I'm just sharing why I took the time to help you in perspective, beyond just, you're an awesome person.
Thank you.
I realized that this needed to exist, but I wasn't the person to do it. And when I saw you get up at one last talk, and you were like, this is it, and I want to do it, and your passion, and you had the reason behind it and everything else, I'm like, it was his idea. That's why I wanted to see this exist, man. Like, because sometimes you just see something, you're like, you want to put it into the world, but you're not the person to do it. So I just want to acknowledge you for taking it and making it real, because that makes me happy. I get to see this in real life.
Yeah. I think it's awesome that you get to be on here with me, because it's like, I was like, this is like a dream, man. When you started talking, because people look at you like you're nuts. Like, I'm going to get a bus and I'm going to start doing interviews. I'm going to drive across the, like, you out of your mind?
Yeah.
You completely lost your mind?
No, without a doubt. That is insane.
I talked to you and you're like, that's nothing, dude. I drove my motorcycle across, where was it again?
Siberia.
Yeah. So I was a motorcycle across Siberia.
Yeah.
And then you took an ambulance.
From the UK to Mongolia, 10,000 miles. Yeah.
This makes look this shit like sane. This is like normal.
No. Well, I mean, it just minds of a similar thing, right? What it's doing is it's defying convention, right? If you're put into a box, why would you live in that box? You don't have to live in that box, and instead it's, what is it that I deeply want to do, and how can I make that real, right? Yeah, and then I think that there's I don't know how this is for you, so this is me now talking, not you.
Yeah.
In those journeys, there's a searching and understanding of myself, right?
Sure, man.
Like, what are my limits? What can I take? What am I really looking for? What do I need? What am I avoiding? That in those times of driving and everything else, like you're forced to reckon with it. And so some of my greatest growth has come from it. The adventure is almost secondary to everything that comes along.
I can't believe you hit on that, because like I literally drive this, and there's so many things I pull over and see something and I realize that's nothing.
Yeah.
The shit that you're worried about for months.
Yes.
And you look at it and you're like, whatever, dude. I can do that shit in 30 seconds, right?
I can get it out of the way. But there's like this incredible resistance. You can't until you come to that recognition, right? It actually is like an impenetrable barrier. Mm-hmm. And then you realize, and then it fades. So to have the time and space to make it like just like let it melt away, that's the important thing. So whether it's driving or meditating or psychedelics or walking or whatever else it is, like that's the important thing. What is it that gives you the space to figure that shit out? And
when you did your long trip, what did you learn? Like, what was that? Like, I know now you're creating these. Like, you have this big business, and you want to talk about that, or?
I mean, happy to, right? Yeah. But so for me, what it came down to is the very first one. Full disclosure, do you mind if I just... Okay. I had lost my parents in a very tragic way. I didn't know how to deal with it. I bottled it up, pushed it down, had a company, the economy started to tank, my company started going down, and so my self-worth, because I was the company, I just thought that that's my thing, started going down and everything else. And I just found myself in this spiral of... I didn't get quite to the point of wanting to kill myself, though I'll be honest with you, I've been there before. I know what that feels like. But I got to the point of I no longer wanted to live. And I realized that if this kept going, something very bad was going to happen. And so this adventure came up, this opportunity to, and originally I was like, I can never do that. I don't have, what's why I cared for you and seeing it, because I'm like, I can't do this. I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, like someday maybe. Yeah. Right? Dead on. Yeah. And then eventually it came around, I'm like, if I'm going to go out, dude, I might as well do at least one adventure, right? That was it. And so we did it. And so for me, that first adventure was this reckoning with how unaligned my life was in what I was doing with what I needed to thrive and survive and be a good person, right? And I wasn't doing bad things, but I just wasn't doing the things that I'm here for. right? And on top of that, finally, for the first time, uncapping that well and dealing with my parents, like the loss of my parents and that fucking grief and everything else. Because, 10,000 miles of driving, there's a lot of time to process and things come up. And so for me, it was massive shifts in that. And I got out and I didn't know the answer. I didn't know, oh, this is what I want to do. I just knew deeply I had to find something else. And that was the beginning of my exploration to find it. So when I think of adventures, for me, it's not the adventure. It's not adrenaline and thrill seeking. That actually doesn't mean anything to me. It's a form of exploring. And I don't care how you explore. It's all about trying to figure this out and everything around us. That's what exploring is to me. Make sense?
It's so cool because you think it's an adventure at first. You're like, oh, man, this is going to be awesome. You're going to be so pumped.
Yeah.
And what happens is you just start sitting in your own shit.
Yeah.
And you start processing and things start coming up and you remember things that didn't make... Like, I've been driving many times this bus and I just break into tears and talk about shit. And I'm like, why am I crying? And I go over and it's just like, oh, I remember that happened and this led to this, which ultimately led to this. Why did it... Yeah. It's almost like you're reliving all the shit. Like, do you find it the same way?
Oh, 100%. So, it feels like... So, for me, like, you get to a certain point in driving, it takes a little bit of time, and then it becomes, like, zen-like. It's like your body and your, like... This part of the mind is busy staying on the road. And then the other stuff starts to chug away, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, you remember things bubble up. I think of it like a bubbling process. And the stuff that you've been kind of, like, pushing down, even subconsciously, you don't mean to push it down, you are.
Yeah.
Comes up, and you're like... Right? So, yeah, I cry during it, man.
Yeah.
I have revelations.
Breakdowns.
I understand things. I have breakdowns. I'm like, something that is so simple that I've beat my head into against the wall for months will just...
So if someone's watching this and they're sitting back and they're saying, you know what, I can't go out and... Like, we got tons of people calling me and saying, that's nuts. I want to get involved. I want to jump on the short bus. I want to do this.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
So my personal thing is, number one is, I don't believe that there's a cap to anybody's dreams, right? When you come and you say, I'm going to create a bus, we're going to take it around, or interview people, and we're going to have a great time, I'm like, yes, that and more, right? However, there also doesn't mean that there's a bar, right? It's not like you have to do something that extreme. People come to me and go, I can never do a motorcycle to Siberia. I'm like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I could never do an ambulance. Like, you don't have to. So what I've come to in life is understanding what we're truly looking for is a regular rhythm of space. That's all. That is that's all you need in your life to figure shit out. Mm-hmm. And it could be journaling, could be walking, meditation, whatever it is for you. It's that regular thing. That's it. You can do it in big doses as a journey, or you can do it in little doses every day. I do it in little doses every day now. I still go on journeys, and sometimes there's some big shifts I need. But man, I don't want to have to wait till the next big journey. Like, I want to do that stuff day by day.
I think is it fair to say that you learn how to do small journeys by doing the big journeys?
Yeah, okay, so
Is that fair?
yeah. So when I think of the adventure, and I hope you don't mind me saying, when I think of psychedelics as well, right?
Sure.
So I think of them that way, right?
Yeah.
They both took me to places I didn't even know existed, right? And so I was like, oh. The beautiful thing is once you know someplace exists, you can find lots of paths there, as slow or as fast as you want to go, right? I didn't know that a point of peace existed. I didn't know a point of meaning existed. I didn't know a point of this disconnect that I had between my head and my heart, and not just even understanding my own emotions. I didn't even know that existed. But once I knew it existed, well, there's a lot of ways to get there, man. So many ways, and you just choose the way that works for you day to day.
Dude, you're like a master with words. What the hell happened to you, man?
Thank you. I think about these things a lot. I think about these things
I can
so
see,
much.
Man. Like, you're blowing my mind right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's the hope. Like, my dreams going forward, right? So you're doing this. My dreams going forward is, I see more and more of the world. I'm going to use America as an example, but it's the entire world. Who have this small group of people who are fortunate enough, who can see where the world is going and see where technology is taking the world, understand some of the lessons that we're talking about just being true to yourself, and embracing change and curiosity, being kind to yourself, right? And we're fortunate. And a lot of people talk to us and share those lessons with us. But most of the world is out of the bubble. They don't know. They don't understand. They feel left behind.
Yeah.
And so what I'm looking at is, as I'm starting to figure these things out, right? And I'm not the only one. It's not like I'm special. I can articulate them.
Yeah.
How can I take that message to a larger group of people so we can then bring more people? So it's not like the 1% and 99% left behind. Fuck that, dude.
Yeah.
I want 80% of the people or more over here thriving and embracing all the changes that are coming and not scared and not put down and not left behind. And I want to be a bridge to do that. So that what I'm trying to figure out is, how can I take my message forward in the best way to help people along the way outside of our group and our bubble.
So you're working on that. I know you did some adventures. You're
Yeah.
creating some personal retreats. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, so it's kind of, so for me it's a continuum, right?
Okay.
I don't have the right words for this yet because we're still pulling a lot of stuff together.
And I love that. You know, that's I love that terminology right there, because you're feeling your way through it.
Yeah.
You're not like, this is what I'm going to do, right?
Dude, the best plans get all messed up.
Yeah, like
right?
this. My wife said to me, she goes, "You know what normal people do?" I said, "I don't know what normal people do." She's like, they come up with a plan and then they buy the bus and then they build it.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy the bus because I would be too scared not to.
Yes, and then you can't. Then you're
have to do
moving
something.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. It's that thing. And so, excuse the words and everything else, but I think of how can we get the everyman and speak to the everyman and help them become forward into, I don't know the word, like the empowered everyman, right? And then that person kind of understands what's going on around them. And then I think the world is becoming more entrepreneurial. So then can that person become, a little bit of the entrepreneurial everyman? And then you have like the empowered entrepreneurial everyman. And so the messages I'm trying to share right now are towards the everyman, and the retreats that I go on are to help create the leaders in this new world, right?
Love it.
So they're playing on the same spectrum, just to slightly different groups within that same thing, right? And that way there's a progression. Like when you get done with this and you understand this, here's where you go next.
So you're making a roadmap.
Yeah.
GPS.
Yeah.
Start here.
I hadn't thought about that example because I think in terms of like arcs and theater background, right?
Yeah.
Arcs and character and everything else. But you said it. It's a roadmap. Here's a roadmap. And you don't have to do the whole roadmap, everything else. I'm not right on everything, but I know pieces of it. And whatever fits for you, I might have something that can help you along that way.
Dude, blew my mind. Again.
Yeah.